The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to our property club. This is our very first short webinar, long awaited. I apologise, but don't worry because we'll be extending the club membership for another 6-month period. So no problems there, but our aim is to provide you with these short little videos, no more than 10 or 20 minutes each second week, on tips and ideas on how we go about understanding and assessing property, and hopefully it gives you a bit of an insight. Consider it a bit of a sugar rush to your financial savviness. So hopefully enjoy these little sugar rush ideas and tips. And maybe you can think of other family members and friends that may benefit from employing these ideas. If you do, please feel free to send on the link, and don't be scared to encourage them to join our property club. As we're going to have a huge amount of benefits coming your way. So without further ado, let's get started. So I guess the first thing I'd like to say is, besides the tips and ideas, we aim to assess about 38 properties throughout the year to determine quality investment picks. And basically what we're trying to do is show you how we go about assessing quality properties and finding those gems in the rough. We access a wealth of information through our software Investar, where we can determine what a property's worth, and we can determine its vacancy rates, what the rental market's doing, its property price assessment. So this is available to you not only for the properties that we assess, but if there's a particular property around Australia you want to know about, well, just say the word. As a member, you're able to buy property at wholesale prices. So that basically means before it's released to the market, to real estate agents and alike, there's an opportunity not only to pick the prime properties within that block, but also to buy them at a 15% less than the retail price. So hopefully we can find some gems there for you. So let's crack on. I've called this emotional rescue because I've made a few emotional investments over time. I guess the question is, have you made an emotional investment? You know, is it been on emotion or pure gut feel? Maybe it was the color of the kitchen or the views, or perhaps it was a family property, or you bought it because you could drive past it every day. Look, I've personally made a few emotional investments over the years, but unfortunately, sometimes this can be extremely financially underwhelming. So I've learned that what's important to me is not always the best thing that drives the best investment. So over the years, I've had to learn to become a little bit financially savvy and set out some important criteria when making my property investments. My aim is to share some of these with you today. So hopefully you get a bit out of it. So what drives or makes a good investment? That's the question. You know, these days, before I part with my hard-earned dollars, I have my own set criteria. So it's important that you have your criteria. You know, a lot of cases we do a lot of educational seminars, and people will come back to me and say, Tezza, I did what you said, you know, I bought that investment property. It's usually when they come back from holidays, you know, they've bought an ice cream across the road and they've seen an auction flag and they've gone in and, you know, they've been very spontaneous and bought the wrong sort of property. But so that sometimes can be very costly, and we're saying do not go there unless you understand a property fully. If you can define an average property versus what a high performing property, this allows you to assess whether the property is the most appropriate investment for you. So property research is a very important thing. It enables you to choose a property that performs above the average. How important is that? So if a property ticks all the boxes, it generally has good returns and it has a strong capital growth. And as an investor, you need to be thinking not only return on investment, you need to have good investment sense when you're selecting a property. So if a property is suitable to the average homeowner and attractive to the tenant, it'll have a greater market to sell to. So things like studio apartments and that are not such a good thing, whereas a house and land, and to a certain extent apartments, if they're in the right area, or townhouses, are probably your better investment vehicle. So your return on investment is crucial. So when you select a better than average performing property by say 3%, this can make a difference of up to $400,000 to your wealth creation within 15 years. So that's how critical it is. But let's have a look at some of this investment criteria. So these are the key things that we look at, and you should note them down. If anyone wants a copy of this little presentation, we can certainly forward that to you. So off we go. So the first one, capital growth. Your capital growth is the key. The rule of 72. If you get a 7.2% capital growth, you will double your property every 10 years. So you double the value of your property every 10 years. How important is that? So we're looking for a long-term history of above 7.5% capital growth, a solid history of growth. This is the best possible chance of growth when the property cycle rebounds. So that is a critical bit of criteria. The next one is population growth. This is a key driver. The demand for housing, high density, strong population growth. You need new dwellings. There's a desirability for land, and there's increased pressure on rental. So this is the key. This will help you with the number one, capital growth. So the population growth needs to be greater than 2.7%. Very important. The next one is your residential vacancy rates. Obviously, if it's sitting vacant there, that means there's usually an oversupply. If you've got high vacancy rates, this may diminish the level of rent you're expecting. So a low vacancy rate enables you to secure an early tenant, which is crucial. And it's essential if your rental is to increase over time as well. So high vacancy rates need to be, residential vacancy rates need to be less than 2.9%. That's critical. Okay, so the next one, you need to have established and planned infrastructure. This is important. There's got to be schools and universities and public transport. There needs to be highways, shopping centres, movies, restaurants. These are all things that drive your capital growth, and is critical as part of your investment. There also needs to be employment opportunities in the areas. There needs to be easy commuting to the city. This is critical. You need to know these things. It's no good if it's 40, 50 k's out of town. It's critical that you look at all these things, because at the end of the day, this is what drives and continues to drive our population growth. Our population growth then drives our capital growth. You understand that? So that's critical. Now, the next one is your median value. So your median value. The median value of property prices. That says medium there, but it's median. Median value property prices needs to be no greater or no less than 15%. No greater or no less than 15%. So you don't want to invest in the cheapest or the most expensive property. 80% of the renters and the purchasers will be within that 30% median. You are certainly limiting your market if you invest outside these ranges. So I think that's quite critical. Okay, so make sure that, and also I suppose your resale is a lot easier if it's in this range. Otherwise, you can be challenging when you want to sell, because that's where most of the market is. All right, the next one, your rental yield. This is very important. A low rental vehicle increases your holding costs. That means you've got to dip your hand in your pocket. So it's important that the rental yield is greater than 4.5% when buying a property. So that's one of the key criteria. Also, if the rental yield is lower than that, you're limiting your opportunities in the future when you do want to sell. Okay, the next one is your tax effectiveness. I always say that if you buy a property that is post 85, you're just about guaranteed a 2.5% or a 40-year tax deduction on the building costs. at prime cost. So this is critical. It varies considerably between properties, this tax effectiveness. So if you buy a pre-85 property, you get 0. So this is crucial you understand this. If you buy the property after 1985 at 2.5%, as I say, gives you a 40% write-off. This is over and above the depreciation on the fixtures and fittings. So it's important that that we get that right. And also, when you buy a property, make sure you get a quantity surveyor report to explain exactly to your accountant exactly where you sit as far as your tax deductibility. All right, now I've just popped that in there. Your emotional tolerance to risk is greatly important, because if you, it's no good. For example, if you've got a property that a residence that's worth a couple $100,000, and we're trying to expose you to properties that in Sydney worth $1 million plus, you know, that might not go down too well. So we need to understand what your risk appetite is, or your tolerance to risk. So that's critical. Now I can't answer that today, obviously, but that's got to be something that is assessed. Now, cash flow positive, I always say it really is no more than your lunch money each day to hold a property. That's what we aim for. So people can generally not go without lunch, but certainly go without other things to be able to maintain that property. On there, I've put a criteria of cash flow positive, so at least the property looks after itself, or it puts money in your pocket. So that's very important. You've heard cash flow, negative cash flow or negative gearing. Well, I'm saying, well, the property should at least look after itself or put money in your pocket. All right, and the final one there is it needs to be at least 10 kilometres from the capital city, because remember what I said, the more established and planned infrastructure, the more population comes to the area. The more population, the less residential vacancy there is. The less residential vacancy, the more demand for your product, for your property. The more demand for your property, the higher capital growth. So all these things are intricately linked. But one of the key things is you don't want to be greater than 10 k's from the capital city. That's where the growth is. That's where the capital growth is. So it's very important. All right, let's have a look at our first property. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but let's put it in perspective. This property that I've selected is from a known developer, the DeLuca Group, very reputable. They've done a number of developments around Melbourne, and that's the key. When you're doing something, you need to know what they've done before. Now, there's been a lot of negative press on planned apartments delivering lower returns and capital growth of late. And in fact, the banks have been lowering their loan-to-value ratio to 80% to try and dampen the investment market, because as we all know, it's been running hot with the low interest rates. The concern is, I guess, that there's 90,000 apartments being constructed around Australia, that they've been sold but not yet settled. So that's a little bit of concern in the apartment space. It's therefore crucial that when you're looking at apartment investments, that it has sound investment credentials. I think that's very important. The investment lending landscape is rapidly changing. They're trying to slow down investment. So just keep that in mind. But let's have a look at this first one, the Hive. Now the Hive up here on the south side, if I can show you there, on the south side, these all have views to the city, which is very nice. Thornbury's offers a vibrant combination of heritage homes and modern architecture. It has cafes and fine dining. These are bright floor plan units. They're beautiful to the eye, and as I said before, it enjoys the twinkling of the urban vista at night. So I think all these things help you with your property. Generous living, private balconies, opulent kitchens. So it ticks all the boxes from that space. But let's have a look. Let's dig down a little bit further. Let's have a look at the investment credentials against our credentials that we set before. So let me just turn that page there. All right. Okay, so the first one, I said capital growth over the last 5 years of greater than 7.5%. Now Thornbury has a capital growth of 7.92%, so that's quite good. So that ticks that box. Now this information is readily available from Bureau of Statistics. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Population growth of greater than 2.7%. Thornbury has a 4% capital growth rate. So again, it has a thumbs up there. Sorry, I've skipped ahead there. The next one is residential vacancy rates of less than 2.9%, and Thornbury's at 2%. So there's not an oversupply of this type of accommodation, so that's good. Thumbs up. Established and planned infrastructure. So we've done a little bit of homework in that area. You know, it has a city-bound tram right outside the door. The Thornbury station has cycle tracks, national parks. It's close to the educational institutions. It's an easy distance to NMIT and RMIT and the University of Melbourne, which is important. It also has Northcote Shopping Centre and Preston Market. So we're pretty well okay with the existing and planned infrastructure there. So I'm happy with that. The next one is the median price range of greater than or less than 15%. Unfortunately, it's sitting at around 18%, which is not much above that, but it's just saying that the price is above the median there by greater than 3%. All right, the next one, rental yield less than 4.5%, and it's slightly under that. So unfortunately, it gets a thumbs down for that, but again, not a big difference there, 4.1 as opposed to 4.5. Tax effectiveness, absolutely. Property was purchased after 1985, so you'll get a 2.5 write-off on the building over and above the fixtures and fittings inside the building. Thumbs up. Your emotional tolerance to risk, to be advised, to be assessed. And cash flow positive, I'll show you that now, works out at about $3. So let's flick on to the next page. So it works a little bit like this. $535,000 is a property with views, purchase cost, stamp duty, so on, $11,000. We're saying that the investor should have some money to put on the table, $112,000, and borrow the rest, $437,000. Their equity starts at 97, and if we get a capital growth rate of 6%, that property should be worth $958,000 by 10 years, if that's able to be maintained, and your equity goes from 97 to 520,000, which is pretty amazing. So you're creating wealth. You can't save wealth, you've got to create wealth. Now this property will rent at $500 per week roughly. So you can see there 25,000, and it has a approximate interest expense of around 26,000, and other rental costs, which is agent fees, body corporate, and so on, of around $6,400. So there's approximately $7,000 out of pocket. That's what you've got to find out of pocket. But don't forget, the tax man is going to give you relief from your depreciation on your building, and also depreciation on fixtures and fittings. So at the end of the day, you will get a refund of $7,300. So even though you're out of pocket $7,000, the tax man refunds that to you. So in effect, you're $3 in your pocket from this investment. So that gives you a little bit of an insight on how this works. Again, we want to have no more than your lunch money going into these investments. It's pretty exciting when you can create that sort of equity. So this is what we're trying to educate people. You cannot put money away into your little money box and hope that that will be enough for retirement. You need to take risk. The biggest risk in life is not taking a risk. And another cliche that I'll throw in is money makes money. So bankers understand properties, and that's why they loan you 90% on a property. They don't do it out of the generosity of their heart. They do it because they're comfortable with that investment. So hopefully that has given you a little bit of an insight. I'm very conscious of your time, so I'm going to keep moving, and we're going to talk to you in the next couple of weeks about property number 2. So look forward to speaking to you then. Have a nice night.